I would wake up and just sweat, soaked. I mean, soaked. I tried again so hard to not have my wife, roll over to my side and feel this nastiness that I was laying in. This is my body telling me I've got poisons in it that's got to come out. Well, hello everyone. It's Jared again. I am so insanely excited, surprised a little bit by myself here, but we are 99 days into this sobriety journey, and you're probably wondering why not wait till 100? Well, I'm the father of 4, and the kids are at school, and the wifey's shopping, and it's all good now. So I've got a moment. Thank you for joining. I want to spend time today just talking about what I've felt as far as health benefits, whether it be physical or mental, and that's how my journey begins on day 99. All right, so day 99 feels great. Let me explain a few things. First and foremost, I think I talked in the last video, one of my concerns that I noticed towards the end of the last chapter of my life, which was pre-sobriety, was that I had a yellowish tint in my eyes, and that was bothersome to me. I did not like that whatsoever. It wasn't crazy, it wasn't drastic per se, but I noticed it and I didn't like it. So in just a short amount of time of probably a month or 2, I noticed that is all but gone. It's just gone completely. I'm back to my old self. I still look old. I guess that's just the process of aging, but the yellowness of the eyes is completely gone. So that was one thing that I was worried about. I feel great about that today at day 99. Another thing that I really felt a lot, and most of these issues that I had are actually the full next day after a drinking episode, after a binge or whatever it may be. So typically for me, that was a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning, and then into Monday morning. So I was a weekend drinker primarily. But I noticed a lot of shaking, just not able to keep still when I'm talking to someone, or if I'm holding anything and I'm showing someone, which I do in my business a lot, I would be pretty embarrassed to see that paper was shaking and I couldn't quite control it unless I set it down on the ground and put a paperweight on it or something. So the shakes probably was primarily from the fact that when I drank, the next day I didn't eat. I didn't have an appetite for breakfast. I never did. And an appetite the next day was virtually non-existent, at least till noon. And I thought that was just who I was. I wasn't a morning eater. Well, come to find out, I can be. I can actually eat. And I eat a decent amount now than before, because now the next day or the next couple of days, my stomach isn't in knots. It's not empty. Because when I drank, I didn't eat a whole lot. I wasn't like a lot of people that drink and eat. I didn't. I just drank, which is perhaps even worse. But anyhow, the shakes would always find me because I was running on fumes, I believe. And perhaps some of that was withdrawal symptoms too. I don't know. I'm not here to say. But the shakes are 100% completely gone. I don't have those anymore. I don't struggle with it whatsoever. It's not a thing. In those days after a drinking episode, typically, again, I'm going back to like a Monday morning because I got to get back to reality, right? I tried to drink away reality Friday, Saturday, and then on Sundays. So Monday comes, and now I'm back to business. I was able to provide for my family the whole time this was in my life. And I know some people use the word functioning alcoholic. I don't like to do that because I don't know where I lie on that spectrum. It doesn't really matter though. Anyway, anyhow, I was certainly functioning. But what I did know is that if I would get into a conversation with someone on a Monday morning, the day after I had drank, I would be an anxious mess. I would be sitting there and all I wanted to do was get out of that situation as fast as I could. I know it sounds a little odd, but this is how my brain was working. I had such anxiety, which is a theme throughout this, throughout drinking for me. It's always the next day was just full of anxiety. So I would sit in conversation with people and I'd struggle and I just want to get out of there. I felt like I was trapped in a box and I had to get away from that situation. I could feel myself just slowly getting closer and closer to fainting. I never did, but I always felt virtually on the edge of that, and I just wanted to run away. And as soon as that conversation was over, I was out. I don't know if people noticed it or not. Probably not. I'm pretty good at hiding the way I felt during this time, but it on the inside, it was a horrible feeling, just a very anxious feeling, and I needed to get out of that situation. I no longer have that at all. The anxiety that came from drinking is virtually non-existent. The next thing I noticed was specifically with night times, and you'll hear about this if you listen to anybody who's got a sober story. Quality of sleep skyrocketed. I didn't realize I was running on fumes. I was running on fumes all week long, just waiting for that Friday and Saturday and Sunday binge to begin again. And what I mean by that is I was functioning on very little sleep, even though I was sleeping a ton. I could go to bed comfortably at 7:30 every single night. I could get 12 hours of sleep. I could get 13 hours of sleep. And my wife was like, wow, how do you do that? And I'm just like, well, I need more sleep than the average person, which I do. This is a reality. But that was crazy. And that sleep was non-productive. I was not getting my REM sleep at all. And the only reason I know that is because now I can stay up till normal hours like a normal human being my age. I can stay up till 10 or 11 o'clock. I know that sounds silly to most of you, but I mean it. I was in bed at 7:30. I still don't like to stay up that late. I still would rather be in bed by 8:30, 9-ish, but I no longer am just dragging. I mean, the kids would want to play games, play catch with the ball, and I would have zero energy. And it's because I wasn't getting good sleep. I feel so much better now. I still wake up angry because I love sleep. So that hasn't changed. I still would rather be sleeping than awake sometimes. But throughout the day, I notice drastic improvements to my energy levels, which is awesome. In my sleep, when I was drinking too, I started to really struggle with anxiety before bed. And a lot of this had to do with personal experiences too, with my son who was going through a lot of stuff from a health standpoint at the time, and taking over a new business and all sorts of different things. So it's not that the anxiety wasn't somewhat justified, but it was multiplied by many with the drinking and then the anxiety coming off of a weekend of drinking. So I would lay in bed on a Monday night and I would literally feel like I'm just going to, you ever had that moment where you just pop awake and you're like, whoa, what just happened? Your body just shakes and you wake up. I would have that like before bed, before I could finally sleep. And I would try to hide it from my wife. I'm laying there, she's fast asleep, and I'm just feeling all sorts of anxious. Like, I just can't do this. I can't fall asleep because as soon as I do, I'm just going to wake up. I'm going to pop out of there. Well, it happened like that multiple times throughout the night. Throughout the nights. I would wake up out of nowhere too, once I actually was asleep, out of a complete sleep, and just jump out of bed and be horrified. I would feel my heart just racing, and I knew I was dying. That's what I was telling myself. I'm dying. I'm having a heart attack. And I would run out of bed. Even in this moment, I tried to keep it from my wife because I didn't want to scare her. I'm just dying over here. No big deal. But I didn't want her to be brought into that situation. And I think perhaps consciously a little bit and subconsciously, I knew why it was happening. I don't know. But looking back on it, I think I had an inkling that the reason I was sleeping this way and the reason I was waking up this way was because of my drinking habits. So I would get up and I would run to the bathroom and I would just put water over my face and try to calm my breathing and my heart. And within a couple of minutes, I usually was able to do that. And I would climb back in bed, and hopefully the wife never heard anything. Every once in a while, she'd be like, "Are you okay?" And I'd be like, "Yep." Just lay back down and try again. And those were scary episodes, and those are virtually non-existent anymore. So, the stresses are still there. It's just that now I'm dealing with them head on as opposed to numbing them. And that's going to be a theme throughout my life, I feel. Is that the drinking just numbed. It just made it so I didn't have to deal with those situations at the time, and then later they crept back up. So anyway, that was another issue with drinking that I don't know if I would have known until being sober. The next, and this one I could tell was a drinking issue. I would lay in bed and I would sweat, but I was freezing. I would go under the blankets and I'd have to have 17 blankets on top of me. I was freezing, but I would wake up and sweat. And it seemed to kind of almost work up my body, meaning my legs initially, usually my feet, and then it was my legs. And then over the last, couple months, my whole body, besides my head, which was sticking out of the covers, was soaked in sweat almost every single weeknight. And I noticed I didn't sweat on the weekends when I was drinking. Obviously not a good thing. I think my body was trying to get rid of it, but for whatever reason, when I was drinking, I was numb to it again, and my body didn't react the way it did when it didn't have that poison in it. So anyhow, I would wake up and just sweat, soaked. I mean, soaked. I tried again so hard to not have my wife, roll over to my side and feel this nastiness that I was laying in, and it was freezing. It was a catch-22 because it's like I'm cold, so I want my blankets on me, but then I'm sweating and I'm getting colder because now my sweat's cold. It was nasty. So I did start around the time when my eyes started yellowing. I started noticing that more and more, and I kind of put the two and two together that this is my body telling me I've got poisons in it that's got to come out. But still, I wasn't ready, as you know. But that is completely gone. There are no sweaty nights. Even my feet, which have sweat all my life, not nearly as bad as they have been in the past. So yeah, I'm finding more and more about myself. It's been 20 some years plus that I've drank, and now being clean of that, even the little things like stinky feet have gone to the wayside. So I'm feeling really, really good about that. Another, I'm going to say, symptom that I had that was scary to me is I noticed severe mental lapses, as I just had there, a mental lapse, and the inability to form sentences without working at it harder. And what I mean by that is you might think when you're drinking, well, sure, you've heard people when they're drinking, they can hardly talk. Well, that wasn't the case for me. It was the next day when I was going through those anxious moments, I was struggling with minor words. I would, if you know what it's like when you're out in the freezing cold and your lips, you just can't move them and you're kind of bumbling like that. I would notice that I couldn't speak as clearly and concisely as I wanted to, just in daily life. I just couldn't. And I started feeling weird about that. I would, even when I was talking to my wife, I would try to formulate the sentence in my head before speaking. And it was so weird because, you just live your life, you talk, things just flow out of your mouth, right? Well, I was starting to notice that those things that were flowing out would start to sound really dumb. I couldn't put my sentences together in a way that would sound educated. And ultimately, when I quit drinking, I saw the mental capacity come back very quickly. Within a week, I had a lot of it back. Within a month, I had more. And I'm telling you, even to this day, I feel much more clear-minded, which is awesome. Because it was getting scary. I know I'm almost 43. I know that Alzheimer's and dementia can hit. I mean, I'm not stupid. And I started to have those thoughts. What is going on? Why am I going through this at seemingly a young age? So yes, I'm completely clear of those mental blockers. My brain is repairing, and I think it will probably repair for the next full year if I had to guess. So that's great. I noticed I didn't like looking back. I still don't like looking back at pictures now. Every once in a while they'll pop up on your phone. You know how your phone makes memories and all that fun stuff for you to review. Usually those were fun to look at. Now I look at it and I just see myself with the squinty eyes, just there, not living, just there, not present. And so I feel so much better where I'm at today. I can't say enough. I do want to speak to something that was unique to me too. As you can see with the cross in the background, where I consider myself a spiritual person. I try to do right. I'm a Christian and I try to do right in the world. And I hold myself to a high standard when it comes to that. And I notice, because we go to church every single week, and on a Sunday morning when we get ready for church after a night of drinking, I was anxious as all get out. It was bad. I didn't want to get in a car with my family. Being in a car is a real anxious place to be. And I just wanted to get out. It was like it's almost a claustrophobic feeling. I just wanted to make sure I was out. I didn't want to drive to church. I needed that day to recover before I could feel good again. But in almost some sort of demonic way, when I would get to church and we would go up for communion or Eucharist, I would get very anxious. And as I'm walking up, I would feel just this intense feeling of you're going to faint. Your body's going to give out. All sorts of just very horrible feelings, like I'm just going to fall over and everyone's going to see me do it. And I don't know if it was demonic. I don't know if it was just my mind telling me, because of the way I think, that I can't keep living like this. You know, you can't show up to a place that wants to make you a good person and those around you feel like they're in the presence of a godly person when I'm doing what I'm doing on the weekends. So I think it was a combination of the two. And I don't care if it was demonic or not. I needed it. I needed to have that sense of fear. It really was an intense fear. And again, I think it's because I wasn't worthy. I was going through the motions of a godly person and living ungodly like on the weekends. So that was a big issue in my life. And there were very few moments where I didn't drink the Saturday before, and that Sunday just felt great. I was so happy. But most of the Sunday mornings, I felt horrible, and I would be under such anxiety. In fact, if I'm being honest with you, there were some days when I would get up and I'd feel so anxious before church, and I'd take a shot of vodka. I know that's horrible, just to calm those fears so I could drive to church, sit through church on a slight buzz so that I didn't feel those anxious feelings. How horrible is that? That's what I was doing. And actually I went to a concert with my wife and we went to church. Coming back from that, we spent the night in a hotel. And we were going to church, walked right up, sat in the middle of church, and it was loaded with people, which made me anxious from the start. And I started feeling all those feelings again. I was lightheaded. I was shaking. I didn't want my wife to know, so I just left. I went to the back of the church, and kind of covered it up as I have to go to the bathroom kind of thing. Sat in the back of church. I just couldn't get my mind from racing. So I went out to the car. I guzzled, I think what we had is a White Claw. Went back to church. And there you go. And actually on that morning, another truth be told, we went back, drove home, and a car in front of us ended up making a funky move, and I swerved to miss it, and we ended up in the ditch. It wasn't because of the alcohol. It really was the other party. However, you can bet that I was nervous, that I had an empty can sitting in the back, and I probably had a little bit of alcohol in my breath. So I don't think my wife even knows this, which is sad. But I got out. I went straight to that back. I went to the back of the vehicle. I put the can in my pocket. I walked over to the cornfield that was next to the field I was in, and when no one was looking, tossed the can in the field. That's where I was. Now, I wouldn't have got anything. I wouldn't have blown anything. I know that, but that's where I was. I know that I had something on a Sunday morning, and that's a low point as well. So there's a lot of low points like that, but I'm thankful and grateful and so happy to be back in church, feeling like I deserve to be there. I know God forgives, but when you're constantly doing the wrong thing and expecting a different result, it's not going to work out that way, and I just needed to tell myself that. Finally, I think I'll kind of wrap it up with this. Erratic behavior. I remember when I'd get starting to drink, because my wife didn't like the erratic behavior. Imagine that. I'm a man, so there's still a little bit of that. That's just goes with the territory. However, I do recall when I would start to drink telling myself, Jared, have more patience, listen before you react, so that your wife, this is how I was thinking, so that your wife doesn't have another thing to throw at you about drinking. If you can act normal, she won't have any reason to be upset that you're drinking 7 beers during a football game. That was the thought process. So, but that it didn't matter. There would be something said, and I would respond erratically. And I was so mad at myself for doing it, but that's the drinking part of it. That's losing inhibitions and control of your mental capacity in the way you would when you're sober. So I would, I'd take the bait and I'd get angry, or even in reverse, I would get super excited and happy. And you'd think, well, why would that bother someone? Because my wife was dealing with someone who wasn't the same. I would be very happy or I'd be mad. And so I hold nothing against her for the frustrations she felt during those moments, even though when they would happen, especially on the happier side of things, I'd be like, what's wrong with you? I'm just happy. That's okay. But she knew it was just an overreaction because I had alcohol in my system. So the frustrations that she had to deal with, I feel very bad about. But I'm just so happy to say, again, 99 days in, I'll be waking up tomorrow at 100. I'm so, so happy where I am. I feel so much better. I've always been a little active, but I'm walking 4 miles a day minimum. I am doing 200 push-ups a day, 4 sets of 50. I feel great, and I'm looking forward to the year point. My next video I will share. I do want to speak to the relationship side of things, how it's affected my relationship with my family, how it's affected my relationship with my drinking buddies, my friends, and just anyone else that I come in contact with, my coworkers, my employees, how being free from alcohol has changed those relationships. And it's not all bad and it's not all good. It's a mixture. But where I'm at today is where I need to be. And ultimately, you're in control of your life and I need to be in control of mine, especially with another baby on the way. I need this for me. And I'm so happy with how I feel. So thanks again for tuning in. I'll catch you later. Take care.